feels like it's the beginning of the climb for one of these teams. Going up to 2-1 would be super impactful. This is not like some of the other groups where 2 spots are already taken out of the group, essentially. So I gotta think both of these teams are coming prepared for this. And Taiwan, it kind of felt like in their loss to Mexico the last time we saw them, got a little bit, I don't necessarily want to say overconfident, but they looked very comfortable until things unraveled.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily that it was overconfidence, but maybe you go in with high expectations and you don't meet them for whatever reason. Obviously, we're saying that Taiwan has the more experienced players, but at a 1-1 record, these teams are on the same level. It's a level playing field here. They have a 1-1 record apiece, and the winner of this puts themselves in a much better position within the group. So yes, on paper, it looks like Taiwan has the advantage, but do they really? We'll have to see. It can be from any number of factors that Vietnam has the advantage.
Yeah, I do want to point out, when we talk about in Hearthstone, you know, the success of somebody in terms of prior tournament experience and being a really good player, obviously the things that make you a good player are certainly going to be there. It's your ability to read situations, understand tactics, do the math. All those things certainly stay with you, but there is a degree of practice in Hearthstone making the difference, knowing the meta, understanding the tech cards, especially in a format like this, where you don't understand necessarily every single deck because you don't have the deck lists. So as much as Taiwan looks favored on paper, we said the same thing against Mexico, and obviously Mexico was able to pull off the upset. Match number 1 is going to be another Paladin mirror. Malagos Taiwan taking on Shani. Now, Shani is obviously a Vietnam native, and she is somebody who is actually out there competing a fair bit in Open Cup. She hasn't necessarily made that big splash. Recently lived in Bulgaria. So she'll be taking on Malagos Taiwan, who is, as his name suggests, a big fan of Malagos, the dragon, and in general, more of a control specialist. So I really want to see if this Paladin deck from him is more in the vein of Control Paladin, or if he's going to kind of use that name and that reputation to leverage it as kind of a surprise by playing something a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, maybe you can catch your opponent a little bit off guard. But here we can see Malagos and Shani. It looks like Malagos is going to be on comms with his teams, whereas Shani appears to have some of the other Vietnamese team members in the room with her. So again, lots of ways to communicate with your team. Obviously, I would have to think that physically being in the room with your team, being able to read body language and take, verbal and facial cues, obviously, maybe you can do a little bit more with your 75 seconds per turn if there's some heated discussion going on. But it is very important, the communication aspect in this tournament.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely a big deal. We saw just Amnesiac talking about, that last play. Do we kill the 12-12 cleric? Do we potentially let it get Shamblered? And Amnesiac even said, he's very close to making an executive call, as he said. So
hôm nay nghỉ buổi sáng.
And there are probably a lot of cooks in the Vietnamese kitchen as well here. So going to have to see how that pans out.
We don't have any TJ facts for us to know what they might be cooking, though.
No, but
Ngày nghỉ buổi sáng hai giọng đang ngủ, đang rất là mệt. Rất là mệt chung. Nghỉ buổi sáng sẵn tiện có Việt Nam đánh chìm luôn.
Maybe another hour and a half, Rob.
We'll get there. Yeah, so
nghỉ sao nghỉ này.
Matchup though, as we talked about a little bit earlier, if one of them is playing the more aggressive style of Paladins, which has the early Murloc setting, they don't need to necessarily go too hard with the Oracle and the Blue Gills, but just the Vilephan Inquisitor, the Rockpool Hunter, the Murloc War Leader, those early minions, it can be a complete snowball.
Làm YouTube mà không kiếm view làm gì ta?
Oriented Paladin to clear the board, and that's something that the control version of Paladins have suffered for.
Yeah, they absolutely have. But from what we saw in our first match of the day, it looked like Thailand had a more controlling variant of Paladin that still had the early Murloc curve, but ran double Alder Peacekeeper, ran a
Hôm nay đánh đủ 4 mạng luôn đúng không? Đâu có ai nghĩ đâu. Hôm trước thì có người nghĩ, thì hôm nay không có ai nghĩ hết.
Ahead to a point. Firebat was able to make a comeback with a more aggressive Murloc variant, but it looked like had Thailand made a couple of different choices, they could have actually taken that game. So it is possible in the control versus aggro for the control to get that upper hand in the early game and be able to have more value in the late game from then on out. But here we're seeing 2 copies of Spike Ridge for Vietnam and a copy of Aldor for Taiwan. So I'm going to have to say that yes, we're going to see Murloc curve here, but also maybe some more of those controlling pieces.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see how this turns out. And we discussed it earlier, but on these mulligans, what the players are looking for is just, again, the earliest possible curves. Oh, wow. Okay, so Doomsayer in the opening hand for Malagos Taiwan. We talked about how
giờ này đánh sớm quá, nên cũng chả có em xem đâu, tại vì muốn quay lại video để đó thôi.
Obviously, we don't have the lists in front of us, but the Doomsayer certainly tells us a fair bit about this deck.
Chào Nguyễn Thành Nam.
certainly seems to echo his control playstyle.
Với lại lúc này mình đánh sớm quá, mấy ngày sau toàn đánh sớm mà kể từ hôm nay là bắt đầu đánh 8 giờ sáng, 9 giờ sáng không à. Mấy giờ này toàn giờ hành chánh không à. Là ít đi làm, người ta đi làm hết mẹ rồi. Đi làm, đi học hết trơn. Nhưng mà tại vì muốn quay lại video thôi. Quay lại trực tiếp, chứ mà lấy video up lót thì đâu có tác dụng gì.
Who has more resources?
Đây giờ này ít ai xem đâu, ai xem đâu kiếm view gì đâu, kiếm view được, chủ yếu là quay lại video thôi.
Shoop on his control paladin, and actually
cái gì mới ra thì nó nóng hơn đúng không?
In the quarterfinals, Dog on his control paladin that did not have N'Zoth, and just because Shoop had N'Zoth in deck, he was able to out control Dog's control paladin that was arguably more controlling than every other paladin we'd seen. So.
Trên đây này đánh đầu tiên luôn hả?
I was gonna say, I think we need a chart. It's like ambitious, greedy, Shoop level.
Shoop level. Yeah. N'Zoth, at least the Trailblazer, Shoop level. This could be Shoop level for Malygos.
Yeah, and like I said, I'd really like to see it. I think those matchups are very interesting, especially between Paladins, where at least the Trailblazers on Goro pack can make such a big difference. Alright, Stonehill Defender though.
Dead, đúng rồi, Dead mỗi người đánh mỗi khác ha. Bên Dead kia thì nó có cả Alice với lại Đơm Sayer. Thằng kia chắc đánh kiểu Control Buffadin.
With no shortage of disappointment the pick.
You don't love it, but you take it.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah, there's Infestatorin. This might be a N'Zoth Paladin mirror, Rob.
Bên mình đánh N'Zoth à? Bên mình đánh N'Zoth Buffadin chứ không phải là Mulok Buffadin. Mulok bên trang Buffadin.
It does. I'm gonna sit down because we're probably gonna be here for a while.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's okay because at least this is a matchup that has a lot of decision making. The board can go back and forth quite a bit, and there is a lot of timing as to when is it right to play this N'Zoth.
Hello.
When do I use all of my threats because they are limited. Granted, you have a lot of them, but they are limited.
Yeah, and both of these teams kind of saying, okay, so far the early game is pretty tame. We can just work on kind of marshalling resources. We can get the Hydrologist secret, get the things off of Stonehill Defender. Shani looked like she's considering either the Stonehill Defender off the coin, sorry, the coin into the True Silver Champion or the Infested Tauren. Interesting, though, if she goes with the True Silver Champion, that she's just choosing to go ahead and get the Stonehill Defender off the board. It's not very menacing. You don't see Murloc buffs. You're not coming into a Spike Reach turn, or Spike Reach Steed turn, so interesting choice. Spike Reach. Very curious at that decision. Don't necessarily dislike it. You do establish the True Silver and kind of force Malygos to play around it, but okay, there is the N'Zoth, so this very well core to your.
Em nghĩ sao mà ở trong công ty mà anh có thể stream được vậy? Trong công ty làm gì có chuyện mà stream được? Anh chỉ đang ở nhà thôi.
But there is value in even the littlest bit of early pressure. So maybe Shani can follow this up with Infested Tauren.
Bên kia cũng đánh Dead and Dog Buffadin luôn.
Of that pressure, maybe tempo this game out before Malygos is able
Hai
to
bên đều
get
đánh
to
and Dog
really
Buffadin.
threats. It's unlikely, but it's worth a shot. Doomsayer's gonna shut that right down, though.
I was gonna say, unfortunately, she's gonna get the bad news at the
Tính
end.
đặng tà lăng quá nha em. Tà lăng vãi luôn á.
And it starts again.
Yeah.
Ha.
Basically, the premise of Battlestar Galactica. If you've never watched it, I've just saved you 4 seasons worth of time. It's just the end happens and then it's okay. It happens all over again. But yeah, at this point, Shani could just go ahead and pretty much choose to do nothing. Could pass. Could hero power. Gonna go ahead and play the Infested Tauren though, and go ahead and just get it killed off. Which probably hints pretty strongly that there is in fact a N'Zoth in this deck, and this isn't just necessarily Infested Tauren for the sake of Infested Tauren.
I mean, having a 2/2 slime left over, that's not bad, but the return you'll get from the N'Zoth later on is incentive enough to play the Tauren when you have nothing else.
Man,
Tình sao 5 mana thì
this is truly the greedy paladin deck that just
có thể lên con kia để discover mà.
It never is.
You win like one game, you're like, okay, yeah, we got the Doomsayer off, like that was good.
Nhưng mà không xài, bây giờ xài cái con kia để hạ đấy chứ.
Yeah, it requires against more aggressive decks and more mid-range decks. Realistically, a very specific combination of cards that oftentimes is hard to come by. Whereas, you know what's really good? Just playing a lot of Murlocs.
And looking at this game from
Đế này đánh đã đánh thử rồi, đế này đánh khá là chậm luôn á, chứ không phải là chậm nữa. Đế này mà đánh gặp mấy cái tụi mà đánh barrier thì dễ sốc lắm. Vì bài ra đa số là to không mà. Tâu thì ít, tâu thì có mỗi 2 con affected với lại con Stone Hill mà nhiều lúc Stone Hill nó không ra thì cũng dễ sốc. Nên đến này chắc chỉ đánh cho dùng cho thi đấu, muốn đánh chậm chắc thôi.
But you understand because of what you're facing that there is a lot of removal, there are a lot of taunts, there's stuff that heals. So yeah, to the point you made, it might just come down to that very climactic N'Zoth showdown. Sorry, staring at the burrito again.
Rob, get some burrito. Clearly, your speech is failing you.
Production help? No, no burrito for Rob just yet. But yeah, Malagos Taiwan basically evaluating how much he feels he needs to put into this board. The Ancient of Blossoms lines up pretty clearly into this in terms of being 6 mana. But again, this isn't a deck that's necessarily about filling out your curve.
Trên đây đánh đâu có mấy người ở ngồi phía sau team, ngồi phía sau mà đâu phải mình trên đây đánh đâu em.
Makes sense to me. Wicker Flame is not high on your level of minions to prioritize in this matchup. So I think throwing him away early is just fine. And Shani is going to value her board rather highly, going to give up one of these True Silver Swings to just be able to kill off the Doomsayer. Trying to keep some form of board presence is actually, however small that board presence is, very important in this matchup. You need to apply pressure somehow, and any little edge you can get is valuable.
Yeah, and by having something left on the board, you're not forfeiting initiative.
Biết luôn hả?
To potentially play
nghe giọng biết luôn.
On 7 mana that's, you know, like the Curator potentially. You could see whatever came off the Stonehill Defender, which is what we see in this case. But you're allowing yourself options.
Đâu có mấy người phía sau kìa, em nhìn kỹ đi, có mấy người phía sau người ta đang nói kìa. Có Iki ngồi phía sau đang nói với lại đang bàn với lại Jenny đó, phía sau á.
Death Rattles obviously complicate that equation.
Lots of great choices to come off of Stonehill, and we haven't really been seeing them thus far in this game. Ancient of Blossoms for Taiwan is pretty underwhelming.
Kịch làm tình thứ 9 mới xài được. Tôi làm tình thứ 9 xài cái giày búp con kia lên.
He is always ready for battle. I'll give it to him. He's super prepared. Maybe he was a Boy Scout early on in life, but Tyrion probably was too. And he
this
has
is
weapons.
The part where I want to regale you with lore, but I know nobody appreciates it, so I'm just going to keep it to myself.
Sorry, Rob.
It's okay.
I'll study up.
When
gotta get that Liadrin eventually.
When I run into Nimsh again, we'll just sit there and reminisce about the good old days of Warcraft. But yeah, Shani continuing to go ahead and just develop the board. Gonna use the last half of this True Silver Champion to go ahead and deal with the Ancient of Blossoms. And
vậy là Jenny xài hết 2 cái chu siêu cho mấy anh rồi. Xài hết 2 kiếm rồi. Giờ chỉ còn cái kiếm của Tyrion thôi. Nếu Discover được một con Tyrion nữa thì ngon.
He's very much just being reactive. He's just kind of filling out the board, seeing what's happening, and you know, he's not somebody who feels necessarily threatened. Obviously, this is not the most threatening board from Shani, but because of his playstyle, he's not necessarily the sort of person who's going to overreact and misuse resources.
Yeah, he's a very patient player. And I think this is a fantastic example of
thằng kia nó có thể quăng con hà mã ra kìa.
It is in control decks, and this is about
chứ quăng mấy con kia ra, quăng ra đốc ra, thấy phí vậy.
It's pretty exciting actually to get him to be able to see him play in his prime.
Wow, so this is, if you're keeping track at home, this is an 8/8. This is an 8/8
that's a War Golem plus 1 mana.
Tyrion là đúng lúc ha.
Yeah. I mean, it's cooler looking, yeah, but alright, that is a much better use of an 8/8 for a Paladin. But Ragnaros is up there, it is an 8/8, can battle, and Malagos Taiwan now probably has to start looking at the situation as, okay, you know, I've seen a little bit of the death rattle aspect of this. There is a chance that the N'Zoth could come down and
cái gì luôn mày.
And if the Tyrion dies,
bắt lỗi quá.
And that is where the N'Zoth Paladin can run into trouble is just interestingly enough in the mirror. You know, he who N'Zoths first and gets the big N'Zoth board, because even after you clear it, if a Karen comes back and you have these death rattles, you have Infestatory,
okay, đâu có thể nào lia hết được.
Difficult to clear again.
He who N'Zoths first is the bringer of.
Nó không chả cách nào để lia hết. Lia bo đâu, cách nào lia bo đâu.
Nah.
Alright, so
I don't know that anybody would read those.
Malagos Taiwan.
Nó dậm chết một con thôi.
Looking across his options and Stampeding
4-2-3 đây.
you some value.
2-3.
Realistically, I think that's maybe the target you want to hit because you get through the first half of it, but there wasn't necessarily a bad target per se.
Vậy là mình không có cơ hội xài con cái axit ở trời. Không có cơ hội xài axit ở trời.
Nah, but Ragnaros, he's a giver. He's like, I got you.
He loves birthdays because he loves giving presents.
Yeah.
Ok, mày đúng chưa? Chú đúng chưa?
It's pretty valuable.
Yeah.
It's like socks on your birthday. It's like, I don't really want socks, but you kind of need them to live.
Speak for yourself, man. That's all I do is lose socks somehow.
2-2 cho 8-2, 2-2 cho 8-2 rồi.
3 weapon for her trouble.
Kiếm đập chết con.
Lord of the Arena just sitting there like, oh, look at all
the really good cards. Ta giác nghe chưa mày? Ta giác đó.
Somebody invited him to the party. Not sure why.
Been able to clear this up pretty handily using the weapon charge. Still has 2 more. Goes ahead and trades in the slime there into the Ragnaros Light Lord. And yeah, Spike Ridge Steed, just make a 3-10. It's not necessarily that menacing. There's obviously going to be no inner fire shenanigans from Paladin, but
oh darn,
it is sitting there continuing to just hack away, and there is no convenient way to deal with it.
Sentarim giờ ra đâu được. Sentarim giờ ra phế mẹ.
Are reasonable ways to deal with it. I don't know that it's great because you would ideally tear them when you have your own large board. And you would ideally get more value out of the
kia đánh hàng bên đội Đà Lan đánh ngồi cửa miết luôn.
To deal with it, but do you really want to? Is 3 damage per turn that threatening to you? And whereas Taiwan has
cho nên biết nó sắp thua hay gì á nên nó cười.
Use of any of those death rattles. Vietnam's got 2 infested Taurens and a Tyrion dead. If Vietnam picks up N'Zoth, it's going to be worlds more valuable for them.
Yeah, and suddenly this is turned into a jousting contest. Everyone get on your mounts.
Rob.
Nó kéo ra. Bây giờ Vân Hàn Dot kéo ra con Hàn Dot là ngon á. Con Dirty Rat chuột chơi bẩn. Con chuột chơi bẩn kéo con Hàn Dot ngon.
Then suddenly this is just a paladin that plays death rattles.
That's a big deal. I mean, all 3 of these pulls are actually pretty good for the Dirty Rat, but the N'Zoth it's the finisher for Taiwan.
I think you can.
Cái Hàn Dot là thua luôn. Cái Hàn Dot là bên kia thua luôn.
You haven't really seen much of the death rattle suite.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those things where, okay, at this point, if N'Zoth does get played,
nếu mà trên đây may mắn,
trên
đó là 25%.
Basically just force some kind of big removal.
25% để kéo ra mà chắc không dám liều đâu hả?
And Shani has thus far shown that she's just more than willing to
không dám liều kéo đâu hả?
Populate the board and demand answers from Malagos Taiwan. You've seen double doomsayer.
Đã thêm tên
I haven't seen the equalities just yet, but that might even be what she's kind of angling towards. Is okay, just bring out that equality. I've got Stegadon.
Bên kia chỉ có mỗi cái lá White Barrow là phế thôi, còn lại 3 lá còn lại kéo lá nào cũng được. Bây giờ ra Tyrion rồi.
If you're Malagos. Tyrion, however, looks pretty good on almost any board.
Alright, so Tyrion does come down there. I have to imagine the rest of that is just going to be the hero power charge. But yeah, Malagos Taiwan slowly hacking through the board. Lord of the Arena does have taunt, so thankfully.
Dùng kéo để George là bên kia thua xì.
Giant Stone Hill Defender on a dinosaur.
Oh, there he is.
Okay.
4 lá, 3 lá, đúng rồi. Nãy tính 4 lá, nãy tính 4 lá. Hồi nãy tính 4 lá, anh không có nhìn cái lá kia là ấy đó spell, anh không kế spell.
You'd have to sacrifice something first, which, to be fair, you're probably going to get rid of the Divine Shield off Tyrion anyway. But I don't like this being the turn for N'Zoth necessarily.
You could choose to just kill Tyrion this turn.
Yeah.
Ngoài quan trọng dám kéo hay không chứ.
Develop Rag Light Lord, keep your board small. And sort of resist.
Bây giờ nó chỉ còn cái gì đâu. Tyrion nó ra rồi nè. Tyrion ra rồi nè, con Lai Lọ nó cũng ra rồi nè.
Just look at the hand size of Vietnam compared to Taiwan. Vietnam has far more resources. They still have minion generation. They have disruption methods with Dirty Rat.
Kéo dính mấy con non, nếu kéo dính hoặc là không dính thôi chứ có gì đâu.
Primordial Drake is likely enough to get the job done, especially when they have board presence and Taiwan does not.
Mình cũng đâu biết nó có trên tay nó cầm gì đâu.
And it's definitely, as I said before, it's not a race to just put power on the board and just overwhelm your opponent. You have to approach this very strategically, and that's why we're seeing resources like Dirty Rat and N'Zoth saved for Vietnam because they feel like playing it down just now isn't necessarily as impactful. Getaway Kodo off the Hydrologist. And this is just another situation where they want to make sure, you know, Taiwan is getting balanced.
Muốn lấy Tarim lại.
Taiwan did have the option of Equality, Hydrologist, Wild Pyromancer, and Secret to be able to keep some presence on board and clear off everything except a Stegodon for Shawnee.
Bên team mình chắc cũng nghĩ nó là cái lá mà lấy lại rồi.
Then the Sunkeeper Tarim. So this makes sense.
Anh cũng chả muốn.
Yeah, for Hydrologist to die first before Sunkeeper Tarim, it's going to take it's going to take some more resources than Vietnam wants to spend. And even if Hydrologist gets bounced, it's okay.
Yeah,
it's Hydrologist. Like that's totally fine with you. But getting Sunkeeper Tarim again is definitely something you would feel really good about. Now we did see Shawnee go ahead and draw Cairn, so Shawnee and the rest of Vietnam are
actually thêm con 2-6 thôi chứ đâu chơi nữa.
Grand suite of what you get off N'Zoth. Sylvanas no longer playable in standard. Obviously that used to be a big deal.
Hello Tùng Leo.
But yeah, you've seen 2 infested Taurens now, Tyrion, and you've seen Cairn now. So we might actually start seeing N'Zoth pretty soon. Ungoro pack. That could be a game changer depending on what's in it.
That's quite good.
Bắt
Go ahead, open that baby up.
Ủa có lửa đó kìa. Ý không phải, cái lá của mây chứ. Cái lá gây 15 đam của mây. Adapt Minion.
Not terrible all things considered. Meteor is actually a pretty big deal, I feel like. With some of the health totals you can get off Spike Ridge Steed minions.
I mean, even just look at Meteor this turn. You Meteor the Steed, you kill the Light Lord, you damage the Cairn, then you can run a Hydrologist, kill the Cairn, kill the Bane with your Ashbringer. You leave a 1/1 on board. And you can hero power if you want.
Yeah, I definitely do not dislike that play. Looking like they're going to go ahead and deal with the Cairn. So Cairn is now
chưa xài kịp cái Secret rồi, bị nó giết rồi.
1/1 goes along with it, and
giết ra
a value trade with the Hydrologist into the Stegodon.
Yeah, this saves Taiwan some damage to the face. It puts some damage on the Tarim, but it doesn't matter. Tarim's likely going to get away Kodo'd, and this keeps your Hydrologist at 100.
Mình lên Raygun mình có thể giết con ủa cái con nào lên trước ta? Cái con mua lốc đó lên trước đúng không? Nếu mà mình quăng con rồng lên, nếu mà đúng như vậy quăng rồng lên thì nó sẽ lấy được con mua lốc thôi chứ đâu lấy được con đúng rồi, mua lốc lên trước.
Does that maybe change the timetable in which you play N'Zoth the Corrupt?
Cái lá 15 đam của mày kìa.
It's definitely possible.
Lấy lại con mua lốc.
Likely not all paladin cards, but at the same rate you have to understand how the Ungoro pack works.
Cái đang nói cái lá 15 đam của mày kìa ông nội.
As well as the epic drop rate. So the value of the cards is generally going to be pretty good. But then you need to understand, well, what's the scope of the Ungoro set as a whole? There's not a ton of AoE. Primordial Drake, King Mosh, maybe. Not too many options. So how much of the Ungoro set is actually going to put a dent in your plans with N'Zoth? I don't think it's too much.
Sure.
But you do need to definitely respect 5 random cards.
Yeah,
it's going to be in the forefront of Vietnam's mind, but yeah. Just in front of that is going to be, again, the equality dynamic, which continues to be, I think, the thing they're waiting for.
Bên nó vẫn chưa xài cái qualify nào hết nên bên mình không dám ra nhiều đâu.
You're just fine to be able to wait a little bit. You still got resources in hand that you can play before N'Zoth. Maybe Stonehill gives you a second Tyrion. That would certainly make your N'Zoth stronger.
Yeah, and at this point, you're still the one pushing damage. You basically got
bớt xoắn, bớt cành xoắn vô dụng.
I agree. You definitely don't need to do anything necessarily in a knee-jerk fashion.
Yeah, wait and see. Let Malagos play some of the cards. See what there is.
So Consecration does allow for a relatively clean clear on the board. Just jam the Consecration and put the Primordial Drake into the Curator, but a Secret did come down, so at this point you're kind of thinking, okay, you know, what would this be? They now know that it is not Noble Sacrifice.
Lấy về tay nữa.
They now know that it's not Getaway Kodo and Redemption.
It's like Guess Who, they're just putting things down. Like, are you the Secret that brings back a minion?
Are you Eye for an Eye, or are you Repentance? Oh, that cup is so cute.
Khó xử nha. Vậy Discover coi Raterian đâu. Cái Raterian nó thì ngon.
So those are okay choices off the Stonehill Defender. Wicker Flame Burn Bristle is part of that holy triad of 3 really good draws you can get off of Stonehill Defender. But actually, Grimestream Protector, especially later on in the game, obviously commands a lot of value. If situated in between minions, gives them Divine Shield. So I definitely don't mind that. Is another big body and gonna go ahead and do just exactly
giờ Discover là xui nhỉ, không được Tyrion hay là con
The Paladin
Tarim hay gì ha.
I think Grimestream Protector's like 4th place. Like a solid 4th place.
Well, I mean, it's not a legendary, so he's not like...
Yeah.
He's a little bit outclassed, but Grimestream Protector is certainly...
Still very solid.
One of the options you feel good about.
Then you hit the Repentance on the Stonehill, so... All in all, you're doing pretty well. Vietnam has less cards in hand, but their cards are pretty valuable. Getaway Kodo could net them additional copies of Death Rattles. Potentially even second copy of N'Zoth if Malygos doesn't play around the secret correctly. And Malygos' hand is larger, but 4 of those cards still are just from the Ungoro pack. Probably won't get great use out of them. I mean, actually, looking at all 4 of them, they're rather useless. Cornered Sentry plus Primordial Drake is a 2/4 with Taunt.
Làm gì đây?
You know, when Cornered Sentry was being showed off in the reveals, I mean, that was like, all right, look, you play Cornered Sentry and you play some removal, you gotta...
Ủa, thằng này nó còn lá hồi máu không ta? Chắc còn lá hồi máu chứ đúng không?
No, it's okay.
Chắc nó còn lá hồi máu nên nó mới đánh vậy chứ. Có thấy toàn phay không vậy? Còn dùng phương mặt nó đập vô minion không? Còn nghĩ chắc nó còn lá hồi máu không mana.
Is that the verb? You just sunshine, I sunshine, you sunshine, we he, we, it, sunshine. Yeah.
Wombology? The study of Wombo? It's 1st grade, Rob.
I understood that reference.
Lấy lại.
Alright, so goes ahead and deals with that, and that is Spikeridge Steed onto the Primordial Drake. I mean, this
lấy lại và không
really
cần...
You guys last week had the Shaman mirror, you and TJ.
Ooh,
but this is also this is another one of those matches.
Nó có lá hồi máu phải không?
It's very grinding. It
nghĩ
comes back down to who blinks first on
nếu đặt Kodo vậy thì đặt cái con 11 lên, lỡ nó lên nó giết con 11 trước thì lại mất cái con rồng của mình.
And things did happen on the first 6 turns other than Hero Power Pass. So I will say I prefer this matchup. It's a little bit more lively. The Shaman one was long.
Yeah, that certainly harkens back to the old Control Warrior mirror of days past.
The Control Warrior mirror, you did nothing for the first 20 turns, but then at least the Star Seekers
3, 6, 9 bên nó full, nếu mà nó hồi máu thì nó sẽ full.
The Shaman game wasn't that fun.
No, it's true. With at least Starseeker, there certainly was the kind of proverbial pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Because you're like, all right, if I just get to the end, I'm going to get cool like legendary spam and 6 Nat Pagels and a bunch of nonsense. But yeah, with the Shaman one, you definitely...
Nó xài, nó sẽ full nên nó không giống vậy. Không, mình nó giết con 11 là mình sẽ lấy được con 11.
That tipping point, in this case, it's N'Zoth. In the old Control Warrior mirror, it was Elise. Whereas with the Shaman mirror, you just don't really have anything. I mean, you had...
Vậy lúc mà xài cái Gateway Kodo, khi nào mà tôi xài cái Hero Power gọi lên con 11 luôn. Là khả năng cao là mình sẽ gom lại được cái con đó.
5 mana. Excuse me. That thing at 5 attack, it would be quite good.
That card would be crazy.
But no. No dice.
Science would have gone too far on that one, to be sure. But Dirty Rat, Shani just feels like it's a time to just go ahead and pull the trigger, see what she gets. Now, Stonehill Defender, he's not terrible. You are denying, we talked about...
Ok, lâu rồi cũng Battle Ride cũng được, lâu rồi cũng đó cũng được. Để nó discover ra con Tyrion nữa thì cũng mệt.
I think what you're looking for is certainly always best case scenario, just get rid of N'Zoth. You still feel pretty good about that. It's not like you pulled out something terrible.
I mean, the Stonehill is potentially a Tyrion that you've eliminated from that's pretty strong. I would say that's second best in the hand for Malygos. Picks up the Consecration. We see a little bit of clapping there because now Malygos has a guaranteed board clear against Shani. And like you were saying, it really is just who blinks first. Yeah, Malygos is down very low, but...
Yeah, and I was going to say, card count is actually extremely relevant.
Gateway Kodo tiếp, chắc chắn rồi.
Blow for blow, and it just comes down to, okay, it's time to fatigue. And to your point, Malagos' health total is so low realistically for what the Paladin kind of expects to have by this point in the game in a mirror, that it's certainly a consideration.
And I mean, you know what to expect from this N'Zoth control Paladin in that there's really no burst from hand. I mean, other than True Silver.
Bên nào cũng giếm bài ghê.
So at most 6, but not really much more than that. So although Taiwan is only at 8 health, they can feel relatively safe here.
Lấy lại con 1-2, nó sẽ lấy lại con 1-2 để discover.
But you never know, quality event draft could just be a thing. It was a thing in 2014.
Con đó cũng khá là ngon chứ, con đó discover toàn mấy con to quá không à.
We see certain of Calamos just chilling in the hand of Malagos Taiwan, and realistically will probably just be a 5-mana Chillwind Yeti. No real element.
Lấy lại con đó rồi giờ discover tiếp.
So probably not necessarily going to be value. It's just going to be the big body. You know, at one point, it really felt like Malagos Taiwan was trying to run out of resources, and he's actually done a pretty good job. And again, I wouldn't expect any less from a player with his approach of kind of like eking himself back in just in terms of like overall value of hand. Both players are just sitting on those N'Zoths.
Well, it looks like Shani is very tempted to play it. You would get 2 Infested Torrents, Cairn, and Tyrion. So that would fill up the board fully to 7. She did just see a Consecration from Malagos, which means she's probably not too worried about Consecration equality. Seems like a pretty good time to go for it.
Yeah, I mean, he's at 8 health, as we pointed out. So this certainly seems like an okay time.
Dạ, bên nó không có...
You have equality, but you have no
không có dậm.
So...
And even if you did, there would be...
stuff left over.
Jenny chơi kiểu YOLO luôn rồi. Thì tin sao nó còn 8 máu, bây giờ nó còn lựa chọn là một là hồi máu hay là xài con em dốc ở trên Jenny thôi.
I mean, lay on hands is not going to bail you out of this one.
No. Is there anything that could?
Kèo thua nó cao hơn, tại bây giờ nếu mà nó một là nó hồi máu.
Stonehill into Terram, you could take out 2 threats.
Mà sự hồi máu cũng không giải quyết được gì nữa. Tin sao mình 4, 9, 13, 17, 20 mấy đam lượng, nó cũng không có. Nếu phải chỉ dọn được 2 con thôi.
Alright, so you go this way and you destroy the Tyrion. You have me sword there. You go ahead and just use a Gluttonous Ooze. You get 5 health for your trouble.
Lấy ammo.
You've gotten rid of a big threat.
Nó cũng chết rồi. Nó cũng chết à.
Infinite taunts.
3, 6, 9, 12. Nó không chết à, nó chết rồi, nó thua rồi, nó thua rồi.
True.
3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 đam, nó chết rồi.
Malagos at 13.
Jenny đã lụm được kèo đầu tiên nhé các bạn.
I mean, I like the way it was navigated by Malagos, but he just basically, Shani made the read when she saw that Consecration came out that she said, okay, you don't have it, and I'm just going to play it now, you're at 8.
Okay, game đầu tiên.
It's not like it's even a bad situation.
Jenny lụm tiền.
You're getting so many resources and you can push the pressure. And Malagos Taiwan just didn't even have the resources to even deal with the board, so that was a long game, but I really like the way Shani navigated that. I think that's the correct way to do it.
She put on as much pressure as possible. Yeah. When you have a deck that is that controlling. She really valued very highly even just boards of very small minions, so far as trading into a Doomsayer to protect an Aldor,
hay quá.
True Silver to
trade
over Stonehill just to protect a Hydrologist. It seemed, you know, maybe a little bit greedy, but that's what you have to do to put on that early pressure and close out the game with N'Zoth when your opponent is at a low health total. So very well navigated by both of these players, but ultimately Shani was able to get a leg up and is going to take game number 1 for Vietnam. So game 2 is going to be Tom 60229 on the Mage versus
game 2 sẽ là Iki nhé.
You, Rob, said that you really have loved watching the evolution of Mage over
Iki sẽ đánh chắc là Pirate Warrior rồi. Pirate Warrior hay là Faye? Các bạn nghĩ là Pirate Warrior hay là Pirate Warrior hay là West Warrior?
Freeze Mage is now gone. Obviously, Freeze Mage was just fine. We watched Freeze Mage evolve into that side Gunther Mage that's centered around Medivh, Meteor, those big swing turns, and still winning with cards like Pyroblast's Big Burn. But now the most recent evolutions that we've been seeing have been more focused on kind of the early game with Secret Mage. You don't necessarily, you're not running Cabal Lackey, it's not necessarily that much early game, but you have the Kirin Tor Mage, you have the Cabal Secret Runner, or Cabal Crystal Runner rather, and you are able to put together very aggressive boards, and then you leverage Counterspell and Mirror Entity to disrupt your opponent, and you finish with a back end of those Firelands portals. So yeah, wrapping up what you said, I'm a really big fan of watching Mage evolve, and I think it's only going to continue to do so. I really think as we go into this weekend and we see the Hearthstone Championship Tour, the different approaches in terms of what people are bringing just shows how wide and versatile that class is right now.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And the Secret Mage, to your point, is about as close to Tempo Mage as we're going to get right now. Essentially, Tempo Mage with the loss of Flame Waker definitely felt that. I think really the archetype as a whole.
Hồi nãy trận trước của Mỹ tụi nó cũng xài Bad Warrior đánh trận quyết định đó, cũng ghê luôn.
Cabal, the 4/3 that gives you a free secret, that's great tempo. Cabal Lackey, great tempo. If you can make good use of those cards along with secrets that are normally a bit expensive but can have great effects, then you can
không em, Iki không phải là Nguyễn Đức Anh. Iki là Nguyễn Đức Anh, Vũ Đức là khác. Vũ Đức là next game.
That's really what the Secret Mage is looking to do. Can it do that job?
Rồi Bad Warrior. Bad Warrior với lại
in this case it's Pirate Warrior and it's looking like it's probably the Gunther Mage.
Với lại Control Mage.
My initial analysis of this mulligan. What are you really looking for against Pirate Warrior if you're this mage? Obviously, Volcanic Potion is great. You want that early removal. You gotta shut down the early aggression from the warrior.
Yeah, I'm really surprised to see Tom actually bring this because Tom is one of those hardcore dedicated freeze mage people. We actually saw him bring it when they were playing against Mexico.
Bad Warrior đánh trò chống vánh luôn.
Interesting that he's made the evolution to the what I assume is kind of that side gun.
Bad Warrior đánh chống vánh.
Again, Medivh, Meteor, that kind of stuff. So. I definitely think Volcanic Potion is what you want. Even, honestly, Arcanologist is just so powerful in the mulligan. You keep it, you get a secret. Your secrets are generally things that are going to keep you alive. Now, Tom actually went ahead and chose to get rid of Volcanic Potion, so that is kind of a big deal.
I can actually see how it makes some sense. You don't know that Vietnam brought Pirate Warrior. It's possible it's a control variant, in which case Volcanic Potion is not good. Also, the minions for the Pirate Warrior usually have either 1 health or 3 or 4 health. 2 health minions are not what you're going to be seeing. So maybe Volcanic Potion is not the most useful. Maybe you'd rather have Arcanologist and Medivh's Valet, which line up a lot better.
Má nó có eye block. Giờ phải rớt đam thiệt là nhanh này chứ sao.
Now I am curious to see if Vietnam will be including something I've been seeing more
Smoke hơn. Không có chay con mẹ gì hết á.
I have actually been
không có chay chiếc gì hết.
Card that when Eater Secrets came out, it was almost kind of a joke, just right there with Purify.
It's a meme.
People were just sitting there saying like, "Oh, this is just not very good," especially compared to say Kazan Mystic. Back in the day, Kazan Mystic definitely saw a lot of play prior to rotating out for just recent. Yeah, it's one of those situations where I don't know.
Là chỉ có.
I don't know that Eater of Secrets is necessarily a bad card, and obviously it serves a very specific purpose.
Không có chay chiếc gì hết.
Freeze Mage.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we saw, an Amnesiac's Pirate Warrior list, for instance, the Worgen Infiltrator. Maybe you forego some of that aggressive damage push from 1-drop minions, and instead you choose to attack against Mage, which is a weak point of yours. It's not a bad tech inclusion. It's just if you're not seeing a lot of Mage or you're not playing a competitive format where Mage is very popular, I would say it's not totally obvious.
Phải đánh cho nó mất cái block càng nhanh càng tốt.
Themselves really well on this board to kind of deal with what you're expecting. Now, very classic play for Mage these days is Arcanologist, play the Ice Barrier, or sorry, our Ice Block, just kind of go with the Blaze from there, but nothing on the board that Vietnam would actually want to get rid of.
Ba đam vô con 24 xong rồi dùng cái kia binh chết nói. Thì bên mình
Taiwan can and they have options,
vẫn còn
vũ khí,
tên sao dục con
Yeah, it looks like it's going to take
2 mana lên xong rồi búp thêm cái 4 attack cứ phay vô mặt.
Valet hero power may very well come down and challenge that this turn. It is also possible that you just frostbolt
bên 24 rồi bên 24 hay là dùng 2 con nó lên bo luôn hả? Nó dùng 2 nó lên bo luôn. Dùng cái 2 con luôn.
Okay, this also is
dùng 6 đã.
It does.
So it's one of those things where I agree the ping is certainly cleaner and you say the Valet for something else. But I think Tom, certainly as smart as he is, Tom has won a fair few tournaments in his day and he is a
Tom
very
knows best for sure.
Skilled control player. He's one of those things where he values the ability to just battle on the board and thinks that that's going to be this isn't going to be a value game.
No. Plus you can clean up if something trades into it, then you can clean with Frostbolt. And either way, you're looking at hoping Primordial Glyph does some work for you. Bet you're wishing you had the Volcanic Potion. Well, now you do.
I mean, look, Volcanic Potion is like, look, you kind of forgot about me, but I didn't forget about you. I'm here in your dark time, and yeah, that is a clear board. So, you know, Tom's at 21 health. This is a pretty good health total. Has the ice block up, drinking from an adorable cup.
It is super cute.
What is with Vietnam and adorable cups?
Lên.
Is this the meta, the adorable cup?
Xong rồi búp.
That's a good point.
Rồi búp 2 kia.
That's a good point. Malagos had that adorable pink one. Now Tom's got the Murloc mug.
Rồi búp rồi lên con tàu.
Incoming podcast about competitive players and their cups, but yeah, Vietnam.
It's better than chairs. What fool would do that?
Don't know that guy. Yeah, we are seeing though more pressure just coming down on the board from Vietnam, and this is exactly what you have to do as a Pirate Warrior, because there is certainly a point of no return.
Chỉ có lên kiếm thôi.
The board, the block hasn't been popped. Alex Straza comes down. You go ahead and just reach for the concede button and you say, well, I didn't do it fast enough. So
yeah.
They really do
có thể dùng cái fireball để diệt con 5-3 của mình á.
Off of the courier, the primordial glyph, they go ahead and choose the fireball.
Xong rồi tên sao nó có thể dùng cái fireline bọc trầu.
Clean answer to an oversized pirate.
So Vietnam is looking to pop this block as quickly as possible. Looks like they can do it rather easily over 2 turns.
Nó dùng fireline bọc trầu để giết con 3-2 là mình không được cộng attack.
Taiwan has the ability to defensively Alex. Maybe they can pick up something off Cabal Courier, but either way, they're going to need some way to survive.
Firelands Portal, at least from what you can see on the board, keeps you alive. It plays around the Bloodsail Cultist, but yeah.
Giờ con bay địch nữa. Ok, giờ cứ phay thôi. Phay rồi dùng Modern Trai để làm mất cái phay để làm mất, xong rồi dùng cái spell để làm mất cái ấy, xong rồi tin sau mình sẽ lên cái kiếm đập tiếp. Nó sẽ không kịp nó sẽ không kịp dùng Alex. Nó không xài được cái ấy rồi. Ủa nó có hồi máu kìa, đệt cụ nó.
Binding heal. Okay. I mean, that's gonna bring them up to 6. The problem is, what is on the board? I can't.
It's an Onyx Bishop.
Okay, so
nó có thể hồi máu để cầm cự tên sao dùng Alex.
Reaper is one off, and if Tom lives, you can defensively Alex bring yourself back up to 15.
Nó cầm cự để tên sao xài Alex.
Daylight for Taiwan. Now an upgrade makes this all for naught. An upgrade, a Core Chron Elite,
nó rõ hơn quá.
A couple different things here.
Well, you can't play the Core Chron this turn.
Rồi. Trời má, không được rồi.
One off. Taiwan is going to be able to defensively Alex Straza.
Tom cackling. He's like, haha, nerd, I gotcha.
Rob, no. I mean, that binding heal off of the there's a lot of priest healing options, but not a lot of them that are that cheap that make it able for you to kill your opponent's minion on the same turn. So this was...
I mean, that's why you run the card. The flexibility of the Saigon Mage, I think
Búp lên 6.
And he summed it up best.
Off.
Is just that you have the ability to discover things.
Nhưng mà tên sao nó dùng Frostborn nó làm mà đứng rồi.
The priest card was a heal. It's not that uncommon, but yeah, Icky looking
he's still got
a little bit defeated.
Lethal next turn if well, you can just Frostbolt face, yeah. Okay. And counterspell.
Cho nên đánh đầu tiên rồi em. Em kéo video về trước em coi.
This is
nó thắng luôn rồi.
Can you kill him? 6, 9, 14, 17, 19, 26. Yeah.
You just kill him. That's pretty good too. 27. Don't give him another chance. Yeah, Icky going, what? Yeah. That's you know.
Đủ đam luôn. Hai mấy đam luôn, dư. Quá trời đam.
Yeah. Obviously, my heart goes out to Icky. That is one of those things where, again, even seeing the upgrade, like, you kind of don't even want to see the upgrade there, being one card off. Icky, certainly a very prodigious member of the community in Vietnam. He's someone who's putting on fireside gatherings and really trying to help build that infrastructure in Vietnam. So, naturally, as somebody who is prior to working at Blizzard, a fireside gathering person myself, at least once, heart goes out to him. He's trying to be a good guy and do that done, but that much good karma doesn't get you the upgrade when you need it. And yeah, again, that's why I like the Saigon.
Nó ra bài đẹp lắm. Tên nó ra tên bài đẹp quá.
And Discover Mage was the name that came up because Primordial Glyph.
Cái pha Discovery của nó thì quá là hay luôn. Thì Discovery là lá hồi máu.
Best of 3 as this series is tied 1-1. Gonna come down to these final 3 games. Up next we have HQ Roger on the Warrior.
Ok, chúng ta sẽ qua trận thứ 3 nêu vô.
The Mage, so
let's just flip what we just saw.
Flip it and
put it
reverse
on either side. Flip and reverse.
Yeah.
Likely that Roger has brought.
Cái lá Discover của nó ra được cái lá 5 máu, hồi 5 máu hên quá. Mà bên mình không ra được con tre.
Please do.
Con tre 1 mana 1/2 á.
Prepare to be debated. Gotta point out that this is a team in Taiwan that generally enjoys control decks.
It's true.
So, and if you're making decks by committee, I don't know, maybe that's just something that gets in your head.
If Malagos is like, no, we're bringing a control warrior variant.
Yeah, that's a big
deal. Who is Roger to,
Lúc đấy là sao một tên.
That's his favorite class right there. At least the last time we spoke to him. So, it's one of those things where, for example, life coach, and I bring up obviously life coach, not necessarily competing as much, but life coach is always somebody who more so than adhering to what the meta demands or maybe adhering to what the most powerful deck is, has always kind of played it his way, which has been that more control fashion, at least most of the time.
Life coach plays by life coach's rules.
And it might be possible that Roger plays by.
Ok, chúng ta qua game thứ 3 là game May đánh với lại.
Yeah. Otherwise, as we discussed,
con này chắc có thể là Wet Warrior.
But Mage has a wide range of things he could do.
May này của mình chắc có thể là remake.
It depends on your kind of understanding of what is the forefront of the Mage meta. Because right now, Secret Mage is all the rage, and then there's kind of a lot of Freeze Mage. So it's just lines up so perfectly. Sometimes you just, gosh, we're good at casting. But we saw the side Gunther Mage come out from Tom, and that's one that I feel like it's actually fallen off a little bit in terms of popularity.
Yeah.
So could be anything there. Obviously, what it is ultimately determines a lot of the matchup. Freeze Mage into Control Warrior or Quest Warrior can be very difficult. It's certainly not the 90-10 matchup it has been at points with Justicar True Heart's involvement, but it's still an uphill battle for the Mage, and yeah, that's it's just going to come down to whatever they're actually playing.
No, I mean, if this is a Freeze Mage variant and it is Control Warrior, because Taiwan does seem to really enjoy control decks, it's a lot closer. The Taunt Warrior Quest build doesn't have a lot of armor gain. You cannot tank up anymore, so it's very difficult to get out of range of the Mage. I'd say the Druid, Jade Druid, is actually a better match against Freeze Mage.
Sao đẹp đánh với lại May á, sao đẹp May đánh với lại Control May hay gì thấy nó có vẻ trên kèo hơn tại vì nó có mấy cái lá mà
very difficult to get out of range.
Counter spell.
I would have to say we're more likely to see Discover Mage than Freeze Mage, just because yes, it's fallen off a little bit, but it still does seem to be performing very well in competitive formats. Secret Mage also very likely because, as you said, it's all the rage. It's very popular right now. That's what the kids love. But I don't know. Pirate Warrior has been the flavor of the Hearthstone global games. It's just hard to imagine that Taiwan wouldn't bring the strongest deck, and in this case, that's Pirate Warrior.
It is very, very powerful, and I agree with your points there. We see the players getting ready for this matchup, and again, I want to stress the point. I feel like Taiwan, both of these teams obviously want the win. They want to go up to 2-1. That's going to be super huge in getting out of Group G and moving on to Stage 2 of the Hearthstone Global Games. But for Taiwan, the expectation is we're going to win. This is, Vietnam maybe necessarily doesn't have that degree of conviction saying, okay, we are going to win. Although Neilio, having tasted competitive greatness before, 2015 Hearthstone World Championship alumni, certainly spurring them on to really give it their all and approach this very seriously.
Neilio is a seasoned competitor. Is a name that maybe we haven't seen quite as much recently, but as I said before, you're as strong as your strongest competitor in these tournaments. Sometimes having 4 very strong competitors can be a bit of trouble, because you all have very strong opinions. You don't know which play is the best. When you have one player that can really direct your team and see the best possible lines, maybe that's the better option. It's tough to say we're not on these teams, but it does look like it's going to be Pirate Warrior for Roger and that Discover build for Vietnam.
Đây là mình đánh Secret May rồi.
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't be surprised to see Vietnam kind of be gunning here more for that Secret Mage build we were talking about. The counterspell is a little bit indicative of that. Yeah. Sometimes you will see it, very rarely, I'd say, in Discover Mage. But this mulligan, you're definitely, I think, keeping Babbling Book, you're keeping Arcanologist. I think you can go ahead and pitch counterspell. I was going to say, for HQ Roger, I actually really like
Secret May đánh với lại
you have an auspicious, which is just always good to have on turn 1. If you'd gone into the Bloodsail Raider where that Mortal Strike is,
đúng rồi, vô đánh thì mình sẽ bị tâm lý chứ không phải ấy đâu, đâu phải bình thường đâu.
That big 5/3 pirate, but yeah, these are both really powerful openers for these teams, and Vietnam looks like they're actually playing something a little bit different than even what we're used to seeing. Arcane missiles, arcane explosion.
Giống như hôm trước tôi đánh
Well, the explosion did come off of the babbling book, which is
giống như hôm trước tôi đánh cái Hearthstone bên Châu. Ngày đánh cái đó hồi cũng là hết tâm lý chứ đừng nói gì đánh mấy cái này. Nên các bạn ở ngoài đừng có nói ghê quá.
To your point, yes, this is looking more like a tempo secret build with the inclusion of the missiles and the burgly bully, which fortunately line up pretty well in this matchup. Arcane missiles is never a bad thing against a bunch of low health minions.
I mean, that said, pirates are deceptively tanky.
Chả ai muốn mình thua đâu.
I would say the later end of the early game, you know, they kind of get away from being those 1-1.
Không ai muốn mình thua đâu.
Nazos first mate, you have patches, you have the South Sea deckhand, but then things start to pick up in terms of like 3 and 4 health minions with a lot of the core pirate package, frothing berserker. So
deceptively tanky, insanely dangerous.
I was gonna say, I was thinking about the keyline too.
I don't know what tagline to put there.
Yeah.
Right, good setup though, Rob. Good setup.
The secret package looks like it is Counterspell and Mirror Entity. These are kind of the hallmarks of what's going on in kind of the new way to play Tempo Mage with the secret heavy build. And the mana word
kèo này hơi khó cho mình nha. Minion thì Minion 1 là nhỏ quá, 2 là to quá. 5 mana.
You definitely don't want to do that. At least if the South Sea Captain trades into the Arcanologist, you have the ability to ping to finish off the South Sea Captain, barring the other South Sea Captain coming down.
Yeah. Or you can make use of the arcane missiles and try to fit in one more piece of mana somewhere. Either way you look at it, the mage is playing catch-up in this game, and if they're able to remove the early minions from the warrior,
không, nó cũng chày chứ không phải nó không chày đâu.
Develop their own larger minions, which will pretty much always win the minion war.
Nó bây giờ nó cũng chày
You
mà.
need to find Frostbolt, you need to find Fireball. If you have Flame Strike in the deck, that's a great.
Bây giờ một với là counter spell, hai là copy minion.
Heads up play, by the way, from Taiwan, realizing that what they have in hand is going to allow them to buff a weapon. They choose to just go ahead and get rid of the Rusty Hook because they have the Bloodsail Cultist in the upgrade. They think, okay, we want to be buffering the Fiery War Axe. They go ahead and upgrade first, so the upgrade could have been interrupted. But in this way, your weapon more than deals with what's being generated.
Yeah.
So this is really, really good sequencing, and I think just thus far, really good play from Taiwan for this Pirate Warrior. I think as aggro decks go specifically, Pirate Warrior, there's actually deceptively, and I feel like I keep saying that word now, but there's a lot of room to actually navigate your plays. You talked about how earlier, Amnesiac and other players have different approaches to it.
Đánh bề qua nó cũng chày nát hết chưa?
Không
phải, không chày đâu.
In terms of mana, but that's oftentimes the incorrect way. It's a matter of like bundling up the synergies with weapons, pirates, and then comboing out something that on tempo is just really difficult to deal with. And that's thus far how Taiwan is approaching this matchup.
It's a great point, Rob. It's very similar to what we did see with Amnesiac. Sometimes you need to play the Pirate Warrior in a not so obvious manner. Sometimes 1, 2, 3, 4 mana cost isn't necessarily the right way to do it. A lot of times it'll get the job done, but there are also better options.
Mà xui cái bên mình không có ra được cái con nào mà set Spirit còn không. Đánh Spirit mà nó không ra được cái con đó, nó hơi đen chút.
Because it is a lot of damage on board for Taiwan right now with a 5-2 weapon attached as well.
Yeah, a lot of discussion going on right now because what you see as being like obvious to filling the mana curve is Burgly Bully, but you realize that Burgly Bully is probably not actually going to get much done. So they went ahead and made the play with Arcane Missiles. Ended up working out pretty decently. They got some pressure off the board. I think the South Sea Captain was certainly the big target you wanted to get rid of.
So I
don't dislike that. Frothing Berserker, though, off the top is a pretty good pickup overall.
Only 2 secrets in the deck for
mình chỉ có 2 secret thôi hả?
Counterspell and the Mirror Entity. The Arcanologist not pulling anything from the build. What are we usually seeing in dedicated secret tempo mage decks? Like 4 secrets?
Yeah, it's 4. It's the 2 Counterspell, 2 Mirror Entity package.
Ôi, deck này đâu phải secret mây đâu.
Okay, what did they have to cut to play Burgly Bully?
Yeah.
What did they cut?
Cái này không phải secret mây.
It is one of those things where if you're looking to have a little bit more pressure or durability, you may say, okay, I basically just need one of those secrets to accomplish the disruption I'm looking to do on my opponent.
Chứ không phải ai của mình.
But yeah, it is definitely weird
này nó sẽ đầy đủ tất cả các lá bài luôn. Rồi đánh xong rồi trả lại.
I mean, maybe you're just choosing to play more tech cards.
Yeah, and to be fair, from what we've always traditionally seen from Asia Pacific, that is definitely the region. that is certainly more interested in playing tech cards. China as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's those are the places where you tend to see sometimes tech cards that a lot of the Western pro players kind of look and say, okay, well maybe we don't actually need that many, or maybe that's kind of diluting the overall win condition of the deck. So. All right, mirror image there. You know, obviously really powerful against aggressive warriors, has really been that way since time immemorial.
I mean, 1 mana going to shut down 10 damage worth of attacks. That's pretty strong. And Taiwan doesn't have a way to push through 4 lethal this turn, even with Mortal Strike, I don't believe. You can Mortal Strike 1, hit another, and then your frothing will be at 7, so you'll have 8.
Yeah, the problem is this is a really bad spot for me, because they're not playing the version of Mage that has Ice Block.
Yeah.
They don't have Alexstrasza, presumably, to boost the health back up the way we saw in the previous game. So this is just kind of a really rough spot where, over time, they're going to have to try to assert an aggressive agenda against the Pirate Warrior, which is already giving them kind of a vicious thrashing, as Pirate Warriors want to do in general as a deck.
That they do. So how exactly is Neilio going to be able to stop it? May honestly have to get a little bit lucky off that Firelands portal, because you're likely going to use that to clear off the Frothing Berserker. Maybe you can get Earth Elemental out of it.
Yeah, Earth Elemental is definitely the pickup in terms of what you want. Okay, so
Fireland ra được con 7-8 mà ngon hả? Con 7-8
You're
tâu.
basically saying like, okay, it pretty much has to be Flame Strike, and if you have Flame Strike, then yeah, we get punished. But otherwise, there just aren't that many things that are really like that destructive for them.
Well, Lotus Agent certainly is not. That's going to be game number 3 over to Taiwan, taking a 2-1 lead in this series. Relatively straightforward Pirate Warrior game.
Ok, game cuối cùng sẽ là Leo.
I was very excited about that win, and you know, I like we were discussing that Taiwan is more like kind of a team of control players, and that's what they like. Roger's like, I mean, yeah, that's nice, but sometimes also just making a giant axe and killing people and winning games is also just a pretty sick line of play.
Whether you hit your opponent in the face from turn 1 and kill him on turn 5, or you wait until turn 25, you accomplish the same goal, Rob.
I mean, one just
in one case, you get to go to bed.
Game tiếp theo sẽ là
the burrito faster.
That's true.
Nếu Leo đánh nhé. Nếu Leo đánh thắng thì chúng ta sẽ tiếp tục đánh vào trận cuối cùng. Ace match.
2-1 in favor of Taiwan. Tom 60229 and HQ Roger.
Bây giờ rút có thể là quét rút. Quét rút đánh với lại token. Hoặc là có thể là Jack Rui.
And Shaman, realistically, much like Mage, has kind of been going through a lot of
Jack Rui hoặc là token Rui thôi. Mà mình nghĩ nó đánh tụi này nó khoái đánh thằng bên Minh Hô này có vẻ nó khoái đánh Jack Rui nhiều hơn.
Might feel that if he's playing up against the Rogue, the aggro druid, if that's what it is just a little bit stronger overall versus the Hunter or the Rogue.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Jack Rui bên mình quét rút thì bên mình ngon mà.
It's just going to be faster than the Rogue and likely even faster than the Hunter. You can just put down more resilient minions.
Nếu mà nó đánh
Whereas
Shaman, thì mình quét rút hơi bị ngon.
It's been changing very quickly. You can certainly surprise your opponent with what you brought with the Shaman, but overall, I just don't think it's stronger than the Druid. Druid has the highest representation in the Hearthstone Championship Tour Spring Playoffs this weekend for Europe. So I think that's a great indication that if you have the option to play Druid, you probably should.
Yeah, Druid is extremely versatile, and the way you approach the mulligans for Druid can be a little bit difficult because you have to honor just how powerful aggro Druid is, and if you really don't go for those mulligans specifically to deal with that, the game can spiral out of control very quickly. So yeah, fully agree with your assessment. Druid is kind of quietly in a really good spot, and I think, you know, when people are out there, you know, in the community posting on Reddit,
mặt nó lúc nào như vậy,
Quest Rogue is
mặt
really
của thằng bên Bình Hôn nào cũng nguy hiểm như vậy.
Druid is pretty much like under the radar.
Các bạn coi nó đánh giải thì các bạn biết có gì đâu.
It's very consistent. It doesn't draw a lot of bans in a ban.
Mặt nó lúc nào cũng vậy, mặt nó lúc nào cũng hầm
are the more obvious choices, I think. But Druid is just a very consistent build. If you're bringing Jade Druid, it's a very strong across the board. It can deal with aggression because of Earth and Scales and Feral Rage.
Coi giải thì coi giải của Bình Hồ đánh, các bạn coi giải thấy Bình Hồ đánh mặt nó nào cũng hầm đâu bao giờ nó vui đâu.
You just win in that case. So Druid is very well positioned right now, but Rogue also has that destructive potential. Quest Rogue especially, but you heard Amnesiacs say that Miracle Rogue is also in a very good spot.
Yeah, Miracle Rogue definitely in its own right. Certainly very powerful if you stick the shares in early on. You get the Gadgets and Auctioneer going. Obviously, Conceal no longer a part of the equation, but you can cycle through a lot of spells, draw a lot of cards, play the Giants. But we are looking at Quest Rogue and Aggro Druid. Yeah, I don't think there was any universe where this was ever going to be Jade Druid.
No.
In my opinion, based on the way.
Bên nó có vẻ rút đam lẹ hơn mình á.
Aggro Druid
Bên nó rút đam lẹ hơn mình. Bên mình làm web chưa xong thì nó đập nát rồi.
Realistically, I would say one of Aggro Druid's best matchups overall. It doesn't necessarily have the same failings that some of the other aggressive classes have. Now, yes, Glacial Shard is certainly something that can give him fits. The Tar Creeper potentially slows him down. The Tolvir Stone Shaper off the...
Khó lắm, kèo này thấy hả, token nó trên kèo mà. Token rule nó trên kèo.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Also, maybe you get a little bit of use out of that Bloodsail Corsair because your opponent daggers out. Some of the cards that are just relatively useless in a lot of other matchups have at least some use in this one. Plus, the Quest Rogue doesn't run any removal. They don't have any AoE. They don't have any life gain. And a lot of the time, they don't have those taunt options if you're not running Tolvir and Tar Creeper.
Thì nhiều team nó cũng tụ họp ở một cái nhà nào đó để đánh mà tùy thôi, nếu mà nhà đó có điều kiện hay là một cái gaming house hay gì đó thì tụi nó tụ họp đó, còn mình không có thì mình ra tiệm net lớn mình chơi thôi, tiệm net có phòng net riêng mình chơi mình đánh giải mà.
They're running Hungry Crab, but that seems to have fallen off, and with Quest Rogue especially, given the tunnel vision way you have to look at deck building, because the win condition is, well, you get the quest done or you lose the game. You can only really afford to run so many things around the edges to kind of fill out those.
Giờ lên kiếm đập chết con 22 đi, tại nó ta cần đôi, đừng có để nó có minion trên bàn, nó cứ búp hoài luôn. Tôi vừa đánh tôi gặp tôi cần đôi là tôi có minion là tôi đập chết hết. Tại vì nó có minion nó lợi, nó búp hoài luôn, cứ búp hoài cho nó sống hoài luôn, cộng một hoài. Rất là khó cho mình.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty much the biggest card in any match.
Bây giờ nó lên hai con kia thôi, nó lên hai con kia xong rồi dùng con, nó dùng innovate, nó búp một cái là quá trời luôn nè. Nó lên hết trên hand nó luôn nè. Nó lên hai bay địch, nó lên innovate, nó lên con 22, xong rồi nó lên con nó búp một cái trên bo là nhìn full luôn, full bo luôn.
Like this is a few of his favorite things.
When the runs drop, when the course.
Quên Fury nữa kìa.
When Taiwan's feeling sad.
Tôi nghĩ sẽ lấy Fury.
I feel bad because I feel like most people aren't going to understand this song or necessarily get the reference, but it is a good one. Just trust me on this chat. You're going to
innovate, xong rồi lên bay địch, xong rồi
Julie Andrews. I think she would have enjoyed
nhìn cái đống luôn.
Druid.
It's hard to say. I've never really been a huge
không biết sao liền.
expert, but
neither have I.
I am an expert on,
không biết sao mà lia được nó.
I'm an expert on things hitting the face. Oh, okay. So vanish in the hand with prep. This would certainly be a big turn, but there's no prep.
No, there's not.
So as much as I'm saying like, oh look, it's vanish, it's like, see you in 3 turns probably.
And in 3 turns, it's probably dead because that's a 3/3 with Wind Fury, and Taiwan could very well pick up Savage Roar off the top and just end the game now.
Khó kèo khó.
Dinosaur's face honestly also sums up my feelings on dealing with Quest Rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the Vicious Flood.
Dr. Ba nữa chứ.
Again, because of the lack of backstab and removal, you see ZGG Leo's is just kind of making
it looks pained.
This is my life now. It's pretty much, I think you're pretty much looking at.
Chắc mình gờ sớm quá. Có Dr. Ba nữa thôi nè.
Things are gonna get real bad.
And even if you do that though, Taiwan gets to develop again.
Không được rồi, không ổn rồi.
Eventually.
Yeah, we saw the Novice Engineer come down on the last turn. Something I was kind of like considering on the very edges there was like if you played the Flame Elemental and drew Tolvir.
Trọng cự không tới được sao đâu. 3-6. Rồi 12. 12 nếu con kia nó đáp mà ra One Fury nữa thì nó có thể chết luôn.
15. This guy's playing Quest Rogue.
16 chết rồi. Đủ rồi, tên sao đủ đam rồi.
Might as well be Shaman.
Who was in a movie with Kevin Bacon.
Exactly.
Yep. Got it.
And
đủ đam rồi.
5 degrees Kevin Bacon.
Yep.
Con kia nó có Wind Fury quên mất.
Needs to draw something big. It draws 2 patches and that is going to be it. And yeah, quick game.
Ngày thứ ba của chúng ta đã thất bại rồi.
Pimping Ho with his signature celebratory style. Absolutely love the heart of the guy, and he's saying like, "Look, mom, no shaman."
He is one of the best characters in Hearthstone. He's always an absolute joy to watch. He's just such a funny guy.
Ăn mừng giống BD quá.
He's a cute guy.
He's a cutie.
He's a cutie. So that is going to do it though for Vietnam. You know, coming in, they were on match point, and you know, Vietnam's like, all right, let's roll up these sleeves and let's. Oh, okay, never mind. Let's actually we lost. But yeah,
Ro đen quá, bên mình ro đen quá.
Absolutely overwhelming, oppressive board. So that was going to be a no bueno bad time situation.
Yeah, that was unfortunate for Vietnam, but Taiwan was able to, after dropping the
Quét
first
là
game,
kèo dưới cái kèo của tôi gần rui rồi, rõ ràng vô là nó là dưới của nó là dưới rồi, dưới hẳn luôn.
Some work getting it done for their team and going 3-1 over Vietnam. So now Taiwan is going to go up to a 2-1 record, whereas Vietnam is going to drop to a 1-2. So here you can see Taiwan has moved up to the second place position.
Right
Mexico
between
is
the two
there
Mexicos,
twice.
yeah.
Between
Mexico
and
Mexico place.
Yes,
Đây là xong ngày hôm nay, xong ngày hôm nay của team Việt Nam rồi đó.
Taiwan is still sandwiched right in there.
Yeah, they
doing a good job.
Most importantly, though, this is really them getting closer to getting that third win and just going ahead and progressing out of the group and you know again measuring expectations.
Và chúng ta sẽ đánh vào hình như là ngày 20 mấy nữa. Ý, ngày đúng rồi, ngày 20 mấy, 21 tháng 5 đánh tiếp thì phải.
But the reality is you expect Taiwan to, right? And
sorry, Rob.
It's okay. When we have the caster tournament one day, I'm just.
Để coi lại cái lịch.
But yeah, Taiwan certainly is expected to get out of the group and. After that loss to Mexico, especially losing in 5, I think you want to see Taiwan have a solid performance. For Vietnam, I mean, there's certain things they can look at where they did differently, but nothing that stands out too much. We do have an interview ready, however, with Vietnam. Pimping Ho, congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, you didn't play Shaman. What happened?
Well, we know that our opponent is going to use Rogue, so it's like my Shaman doesn't have a chance against Rogue, so I'm using Druid.
Yeah.
It's all planned.
It's a sad day, but it makes sense.
We talked about it. The aggro druid absolutely makes sense.
Ngày tiếp theo chúng ta sẽ đánh là ngày 26 tháng 5 nha, Việt Nam đánh với Singapore. Và ngày tiếp theo nữa là ngày cuối cùng là ngày 16 tháng 6. Chúng ta vẫn còn 2 ngày nữa. Chúng ta vẫn còn 2 ngày nữa. Là 26 tháng 5 với lại 16 tháng 6.
Taiwan, sorry, Taiwan. Can Taiwan go all the way?
Yeah, sure. We are pretty confident that we are.
Anh Phát nãy giờ em.
Yeah, what happened with the series? The last series you had, I believe it was against Mexico. You guys lost.
Bại lên đẹp quá chịu thôi chứ sao? Tên 2 mà lên 4 con trên bàn. Bút Win Fury nữa, quét rui làm gì? Quét rui làm gì dọn được? Đâu có bài nào dự dọn thôi, ngoài cái lá mà trả về hand. Đâu có cách nào đâu. Quét rui nó rõ ràng là nó dưới kèo của token rồi. Gặp nó thêm lên bài đẹp nữa thôi thua.
Yeah, I was gonna say anything you want to say to all the fans out there watching. Obviously, Pimping Ho.
Okay, giờ thì
you have a big name in the scene as kind of being the shaman. Is there anything you guys want to say to those fans?
Well, I guess watch us and we'll win the global game.
Thì lịch chúng ta sẽ còn đánh ngày 26 tháng 5 và ngày 16 tháng 6.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah,
He's so fun.
Very animated guy.
Là 26 tháng 5 chúng ta đánh Singapore và 16 tháng 6 chúng ta đánh với Mexico.
We can always hang out with Pimping Ho again. But yeah, this was two
thì
very exciting series tonight.
Hết rồi nhé, hôm nay là coi như xong rồi nhé. Hôm nay chúng ta đã xong rồi. Cảm ơn các bạn đã ngồi xem stream nhé. Hẹn gặp lại các bạn ở những lần livestream sắp tới. Nhớ like, ủng hộ và sub ủng hộ Gà nha. Chào các bạn.